Here's my ranking of the 14 books I've read this year so far. The first book I read was The Big Short by Michael Lewis. So we're starting strong. This book is about various people who predicted the Great Recession in 2008 and shorted the stock market. There's also a movie with a ton of big name actors like Brad Pitt and Ryan Gosling, and it's my favorite finance movie. So overall, I would definitely recommend both the book and movie, but only if you have some interest in the finance world. For me, it's an easy 5 stars. I think Michael Lewis is a very strong storyteller, so I wanted to try another book by him. And when looking at his list, I was surprised to see that he has several movies based on his writing. It includes The Big Short, Moneyball, and The Blind Side. I settled on another finance book called Flash Boys. This is an interesting look at the high frequency trading industry. And these are people who use computers and algorithms to automatically make investment decisions. And in the book, you learn about one guy who is secretly building a wire underground from Chicago to New Jersey. He hired construction crews across the country and didn't tell them what they were working on. And the big idea was so he could save a few microseconds on transactions and beat all the other high frequency traders. There's another guy who went to prison for stealing a Goldman Sachs algorithm. If any of that sounds interesting to you, this will be a fun read. I definitely liked it, but not as much as The Big Short. So for me, it'll be 3.5 stars. Next was A Life in Parts by Bryan Cranston. This is a memoir by the guy who played Walter White in Breaking Bad, along with many other roles in movies and TV shows. I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan, and I really enjoyed this book. My wife even got Dean Norris, the guy who played Hank on the show, to send me a video message a few years ago.
It's Dean Norris here, man. How you doing? AKA Hank Schrader from Breaking Bad.
I really enjoyed learning the background on how Bryan Cranston broke into acting and especially some inside stories on the filming of Breaking Bad. 3.5 stars. Next, I picked up Titan, John D. Rockefeller by Ron Chernow. Rockefeller was the oil and train magnate in the late 1800s, and this book was brutally detailed. It's a huge book, and I was 50 pages in, and I was just not excited to read further, so I dropped it. If you like deep dives on historical figures, this would probably be a 5 star book, but for me, I was just not that interested. So that was a DNF or did not finish. Next, I picked up Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. This is a book of just how humans think and understanding why. And unfortunately, this was another dud for me. I just felt bored about 10 pages in and decided to drop it. And again, this star rating is purely by my enjoyment of the books. So some critically acclaimed books are low on this list. And I'm not saying they were bad, just maybe they weren't for me. So that was another DNF. Thankfully, I really enjoyed this next one, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. This was a very enjoyable read on the founding of Nike. Phil was a track runner in college, and he had some ideas for new shoes to take on the dominant Adidas brand. One of my favorite business books, and a safe recommendation for anyone interested in that type of genre. 4 stars. I really love this next book, The Wager by David Grann. This is a nonfiction true story that reads like a thriller. I absolutely could not put this book down. The premise is that in the mid 1700s, England and Spain are at war. England sends 5 ships on a mission to steal the gold on a Spanish galleon, but the mission just goes horribly wrong. There are a bunch of shipwrecks, just life on a deserted island with no food, mutinies, and crewmates murdering each other on that island for the few resources. This is one of my favorite books I've ever read, and I'm so excited that Martin Scorsese and Leo DiCaprio are making a movie about it. This is an easy 5 stars. Next, I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. This was my first sci-fi book of the year, and Project Hail Mary is about a guy who wakes up on a spaceship with amnesia, just no memory of who he is or why he's even in space. but he soon discovers that he's on a mission to save the world. I won't say more than that because that would get into spoilers. But overall, this was a very fun, heartfelt adventure with some good humor. Some of the dialogue did feel a little bit cringy for me, or maybe just out of place. But overall, very fun book and a great starting place if you want to try out the sci-fi genre. Also, they're making a movie on this one with Ryan Gosling as the main character, so I'm looking forward to that. 3 stars. Next up was Yearbook by Seth Rogen. This is a memoir by Seth, and I would say if you're already a big fan of his, you'll probably love this book. Some of the stories with other celebrities were pretty funny, though overall I didn't feel very engaged while reading. So if you love his early 2000s movies, you'll probably like this one. Unfortunately, I was just looking forward to finishing it as I was reading. So that'll go with 2 stars, not for me, but probably for someone. Next, I read 11/22/63 by Stephen King. This was my first Stephen King book, and I typically do not like horror movies, and this is not a horror book, so I gave it a shot. It's about a guy in modern day who travels back in time to the 1950s with the goal of stopping the JFK assassination. I know it sounds like a weird premise, but it works. Some of the scenes were a bit dark for my tastes, but overall, this was a very well written book, and I can see why he's a popular writer. 3.5 stars. Next, I read The Storyteller, Tales of Life and Music by Dave Grohl. This is a memoir by the drummer of Nirvana and the founder of the Foo Fighters. I'm a casual fan of both of those bands, and it was pretty cool to see how he broke into the music industry and just the behind the scenes of some famous moments. If you're into rock music at all, this is a good recommendation, though I probably would not recommend it if it's not your genre. 3 stars. Red Rising by Pierce Brown. This is a sci-fi slash fantasy book, and it's the first in the very popular Red Rising series. I got about 90 pages in and just didn't feel hooked, so I did drop it just because I was more excited for some other books on my TBR. I will say that I'm committed to reading the whole first trilogy next summer, so hopefully there will be a higher rating next year. I've also heard that the next 2 books in the series are even better than the first, so I'll definitely be giving it another chance. DNF. But I'll put it at the top of the DNF. Next, I read Piranesi by Suzanna Clarke. This is a whimsical fantasy book about a guy in a mansion with thousands of rooms. It's kind of a mystery slash thriller, and quite a few booktubers that I follow recommended this one. It's a pretty short book, so I did finish it, but I can't give it more than 2 stars since I was fairly bored. I see why it's critically acclaimed, it's just probably not for me. 2 stars. Okay, last one. The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. I grew up with the movies, and I finally read the book this year. There's a reason this is a classic. I found myself completely engrossed in the story, and I would highly recommend it for any fans of the movies. Just go in knowing that the movies have much more emphasis on the action, so expect to read more details about the journey that the characters go through. For me, I love the book, and I'm so excited to read The Two Towers and Return of the King next. 5 stars. So, those are my book rankings for the first half of the year. Let me know what you think, and please let me know any recommendations you have. Thanks for watching.